Hello, Braxton. I was flattered to see that you took the time not only to watch my crappy little response video, but that you included it in your video and it even inspired the title. You had some questions about my positions that I talked about in that video, so I thought I would respond again. The first question you raised was regarding what I mean when I say that using the lack of belief position is sometimes appropriate. This ties into something that Matt Dillahunty points out frequently, which is that the statement, God exists, and the statement, God does not exist, are not both responses to a single claim. These are each separate claims, and each can be answered with true, false, or unknown. One might even answer either claim with unknowable, as the idea of agnosticism is sometimes defined. This is a problem with your belief graph, which should in fact have two lines, each of which would lie along a true-false spectrum. As for questions about whether or not I have absolute certainty about my beliefs, again, I'm in accord with Dillahunty on this. I don't think we can have absolute certainty about anything. And I also don't think it's a particularly useful concept. Maximal certainty is a better term to use. There is a subtle but very important distinction that frequently gets muddied in these discussions. And this is at the heart of my example about the Earth being spherical and believing that life exists elsewhere in the universe. This is the differentiation of making factual claims about the nature of reality versus our beliefs about the nature of reality. There is a critical difference between the statement, God exists, and the statement, I believe God exists. The first is a factual statement about the nature of reality. The second is a belief statement. The first bears the burden of proof or evidence. The second only bears the burden of you not thinking the person making the claim is a liar. We can have discussions about why someone holds that belief, but the claim about the belief itself does not demand evidentiary support. That was the distinction I was trying to highlight in my example. So, the claim the Earth is spherical is a factual statement about the nature of reality. It requires evidentiary support. The claim, I believe there is life elsewhere in the universe, is a belief statement that does not require evidentiary support, although we can talk about the reasons for holding such a belief. Similarly, the claim God exists is a factual statement about the nature of reality which requires evidentiary support, while the claim I believe God exists is a belief statement which does not require evidentiary support, although we can talk about the reasons for holding such a belief, which may or may not be evidence-based. I would argue that reason and evidence are not the same things as you suggest in your response. The claim, I believe no gods exist, is likewise a belief statement, not a factual statement about the nature of reality. So even though I believe that no gods exist, and I believe that life exists elsewhere in the universe are not both positive claims, they are both belief claims. It has been my experience in these types of discussions that theists more frequently tend to make the God exists type of claims, like presuppositionalists that you mentioned in your video, while atheists tend to make the I don't believe God exists type of claims, although people on both sides make both types of claims. You say that you believe that there are good reasons to believe that the supernatural exists. I would love to have that conversation. But I'll unpack my beliefs a bit more here. Labels are very limited in their usefulness. This is why I really try to avoid arguments about what exactly an atheist is and what exactly an agnostic is, because at that point, you're often just arguing semantics and not substance. No label is all-encompassing, nor is it detailed. Labels are broad generalizations that allow us to economize on brain processing space. Like a computer's RAM, we can only manage so much data at once, so we offload some of that work by categorizing and labeling, which is fine for moving through our day-to-day lives, but is not useful in deeper conversations like these. The limited nature of labels is why I have a very hard time actually labeling my own beliefs, because they don't fit neatly into existing labels or categories. I would contend that some form of materialism or naturalism is the most accurate model of our reality based on our current knowledge. But both of these ideas are poorly defined even in philosophical circles. They don't quite accurately capture my position. I think a more accurate label for my position is anti-supernaturalism, which again is ill-defined because the idea of the supernatural is ill-defined. When I talk about the supernatural, what I'm referring to is a broad category of phenomena and experiences that are generally grouped together. These would be things like dowsing, spirit readings, faith healings, fortune telling, astral projection, life energy, astrology, ghosts, hauntings, miracle workers, psychic abilities like Uri Geller, and a whole host of other things for which I haven't yet found a specific common attribute or set of attributes with which to categorize them. What qualifies as supernatural is kind of like the old saying about pornography. I know it when I see it. Trying to explain my positions for this video has given me the chance to think about how to quantify the supernatural, and I appreciate that. So here's where I'm at with this at this moment. These are all phenomena that defy or appear to defy facts we know about the nature of the material world. They are often not testable or repeatable, and they have no proposed mechanism for how they might work that is quantifiable or testable. We can make two groupings of these phenomena: those we can investigate and those we cannot investigate. Those we cannot investigate should not favor any conclusions one way or the other about the nature of these phenomena. This seems self-evident to me. Of the second group, we have those which have been investigated and those which have not. Again, even though something could potentially be investigated, if it hasn't, then it is categorically no different from something with which we cannot investigate. In regards to claims about the nature of that phenomenon or experience. Of the group of supernatural events and claims which have been investigated, we have come to only two conclusions. First, that we don't know what the cause was. We simply haven't found an answer to that. Second, that they are bogus and or there is some naturalistic explanation, often including intentional fraud, as in the case of people like Uri Geller and Peter Popov. We have to date absolutely no claims that have a definitive supernatural or spiritual cause. This last category of events and claims that have been shown to have naturalistic causes and or be bogus in nature has enormous numbers of examples. Some of them, like astrology, dowsing, and Ouija boards, have been so thoroughly investigated that we are justified in writing them off categorically as bogus or fraudulent. I know that I am potentially running afoul of the no black swans fallacy here, pun intended, but I think that given both the lack of positive demonstration for the supernatural and the numerous refutations of the supernatural, it is still reasonable to hold this position until such time as we have a compelling reason to discard it. This is in keeping with how we do scientific research. For example, nuclear decay rates are presumed to be constant. We have tested this repeatedly. Atomic clocks and smoke detectors are based on this principle. So scientists hold it as a tentative fact about reality. It is still a no black swans fallacy, but given the large body of evidence for and the lack of evidence against, that assumption of fact is justified until we have some reason to discard it. So this is where I am. On the one hand, we have a massive body of evidence against anything supernatural, showing it to be bogus and frequently fraudulent. On the other hand, we have no definitive evidence for anything other than the material reality. Given those two facts, I contend that we are justified in holding that materialism or naturalism is the most accurate model of reality, with the understanding that this conclusion is tentative and subject to change, as all such beliefs should be. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my other video, and hopefully for taking the time to watch this one. I really appreciate the tone that you bring to these conversations. Braxton, I think there's so much acrimony in the world right now, and certainly in debates like these, that what you're doing, even though I strongly disagree with a lot of the positions that you hold, I do listen to your videos. I still watch your videos because of the tone that you're bringing to the conversation, which I think is so important, and I want to thank you for that. Anyway, what else is there to say? Peace out and be kind to one another.